أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we will be doing something a little bit different from our past days. We will have the entire program be interactive. And inshallah, we will have members of our community reciting the dua and the adhan after the speech. So inshallah, we will have a slightly different program than we have had in the past days. And that will bring us, inshallah, a greater feeling of being together, even if we are not able to come together in the masjid for our worship. Over the last few sessions, we have talked about the teachings of Ahlul Bayt with regard to our Islamic akhlaq, our character, and our behavior. And we have mentioned that jihad in Islam is the struggle for the establishment of justice and the eradication of injustice. Because justice and injustice begin within our heart, before they can be expressed outside of our person, in our actions and in our words and in our society, the struggle for justice also must begin within the human soul. And that is why the struggle for self-purification is called al-jihadul akbar, the greatest jihad. Because not only is it lifelong and not only is it more important than any other form of jihad, the success of any other struggle that you have in society must come from a place of moral development and discipline. We cannot eradicate the harm to the environment or the harm to society from war, from poverty, from many other social evils, unless we eliminate greed and jealousy and arrogance and moral ills from the heart of people. Otherwise, we might have a wonderful solution for a problem in society. We figure out how to clean up the polluted beaches. We figure out how to feed everybody who is hungry. If the greed and the evil within the heart remains, then that problem will just come back after a short time. Islam wants us to focus on that inner struggle so that we can have a true solution to all of the problems that exist for humanity, whether they are individual problems or societal problems. Today, I would like to look at one of the most beautiful teachings we have in Islam. You have perhaps heard of Risalatul Huquq, the book of rights of our fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein, Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Imam Zainul Abidin, of course, is known for his worship Zainul Abidin, his title literally means the one who is an adornment for worshippers. Sayyidus Sajidin, another of his titles, means the one who is the prince and the master of those who prostrate on the ground for the sake of Allah. So Imam Zainul Abidin was known for his worship. He was known for the beauty of his du'as in As-Sahifa As-Sajjadiyah. And those du'as are prayers to Allah for our needs. They are also a lesson in Islamic morals and manners, and they are a lesson in Islamic theology. What kind of God do we believe in and do we worship? What is the role of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt in our guidance and in our life? Those beliefs are also explained within the du'as of Imam Zainul Abidin. One of those sources of guidance from Imam Zainul Abidin is Risalatul Huquq, the book of rights. And what is interesting in this book for us is both what the rights are. As I mentioned some of the rights that Imam Zainul Abidin talks about, then you will understand that the actual obligation that we have, the right that we have, this is something that we are familiar with because we know what the requirements of practice are for a Muslim. What are the actions that a Muslim is required to practice? But what is even more interesting than the actual obligations and rights that Imam Zainul Abidin lists for us is the comprehensiveness of this list. What Imam Zainul Abidin does for us in this short hadith, short in the sense of it's a booklet, not a very long book. He lists for us a complete understanding of what are the obligations that you as a Muslim have. What do I need to be aware of? And the Imam does it in a way that shows us all of the different roles that we have as a human being, and also shows us how all of those different roles fit together in a consistent and a harmonious life. Because when I know that I have different obligations, sometimes I feel like I can't combine different things. I have my work obligations, and then I have my family time. And sometimes somebody in my family might be sick, so my family life invades my work life. Or I might get a work call after hours when I want to spend time with my family, and my work invades my family time, and so on and so forth. Even within our family, we might have relatives, we might have parents, we might have children, we might have a spouse. All of those different roles, they might be pulling us in different directions. And it's always the case that when we are busy, it's difficult for us to figure out how to combine all of our obligations and do everything that we are responsible for. But what helps us is to understand the harmony behind all of those different roles. And the harmony comes through Allah. Because if we have a responsibility to our job, it's not because of our boss. It's not because of our paycheck. It's not because we want to become famous and successful in our career. It is because Allah has told us that we are responsible for earning a livelihood. And when we make an effort, it is Allah that provides us the fulfillment of our needs. He will test us, and then He has guaranteed to provide us our rizq. So that belief and the following my career for the sake of Allah, it brings a harmony in my life so that my career doesn't take over my life. The same thing when I have different responsibilities, I honor my parents, my children, my family, my masjid, and I volunteer for the masjid and for the betterment of my community. I do all of those things for the sake of Allah. And that shared purpose means that I will never do too little or too much, because all of those different roles, all of those different goals in my life, they are coming towards a shared purpose. So that is what we get from these teachings of Imam Zainul Abidin. Let's look at the words of our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. The first right that the Imam mentions, what is the list of obligations that you have? The Imam says, Haqqullahil akbaru alayk, the greatest right of Allah. And this is the one right that the Imam describes it as Haqqullah al-Akbar, the greatest right of Allah. And one of the reasons why the Imam might call this the greatest right is because every other right that the Imam is going to talk about in our families, in our worldly life, that too is Haqqullah. Anything that I do in my life, I don't do it because I want to. I don't do it because I owe something to any other human being intrinsically. I do it because Allah has commanded me, Allah has inspired me to honor those responsibilities that I have in life. So when I show kindness to my parents, when I show generosity to those who are in need, anything that I do in my life, that is Haqqullah. I am fulfilling my obligation to Allah. That is the harmony in our different roles. But the greatest right of Allah is to turn our attention to Allah in worship and in gratitude, in devotion. So this is the greatest right of Allah. Haqqullahil akbaru alayk. The greatest right of Allah is an ta'budahu. Worship Allah. Wala tushrika bihi shay'a. And don't worship anyone aside from Allah. Don't ascribe any partners to Allah, only Allah and nobody else. فَإِذَا فَعَلْتَ ذَلِكَ بِإِخْلَاصٍ. If you do that with sincerity. Worship for Allah is not to show off. It's not to become famous. It's not so that people will say, so-and-so is such a good mu'min, such a pious person. It is for the sake of Allah. If you do that sincerely. Now this is the beauty of the rights that Islam has taught us. When I owe somebody something, then there is a reciprocal right that I have. Every right comes with a responsibility, and every responsibility comes with a right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we owe Him everything. We owe Him our existence. We owe Him all of the blessings that we have in our life. Allah doesn't owe us anything. There is no reciprocal right that Allah owes us. However, Allah has said that if you fulfill what you owe me with sincerity, then I will obligate myself. He doesn't owe it to us, but Allah will treat us as if He owes us something. Allah will make Himself obligated to fulfill all of our needs. فَإِذَا فَعَلْتَ ذَلِكَ بِإِخْلَاصٍ. If you do this with sincerity, جَعَلَ لَكَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ أَنْ يَكْفِيَكَ أَمْرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Allah will obligate Himself to fulfill all of your needs in this life and in the hereafter. يَكْفِيَكَ أَمْرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Whatever you might need in this world, whatever you might need in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of all of those needs. So Allah will treat us as if He owes us something, and that is the generosity of Allah, that when we repay the debt we owe Him, Allah treats it as if it is an act of kindness, and it is something that we have now a claim on His mercy for. Allah will, in response, يَكْفِيَكَ أَمْرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Your worldly needs, Allah will take charge. So whatever you go through in life, ups and downs, hardship, whatever it might be, trust that Allah has a purpose for it. Allah has taken charge of making sure that your life is always blessed. There might still be hardship. Inna ma'al usri yusra. There will be hardship and there will be ease. But Allah will manage your life. He is yakfiyaka amrad dunya. He is going to manage your affairs so that it is spiritually best for you. You should have that reassurance. And wal akhirah. Allah will take care of you in the hereafter, meaning He will protect you from punishment. Now, after the right of Allah, then Allah mentions the right of your nafs. That's the greatest right of Allah. And then in order for you to be able to fulfill any other right, you have to have self-respect. You have to value your own soul. If you put yourself down, if you don't appreciate the value of the life, the gift that Allah has given you of your strength and your intellect and your soul, you will not be able to be a good believer. So after the right of Allah, then the next one is وَحَقُّ نَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ, your own right. أَن تَسْتَعْمِلَهَا بِطَاعَةِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Use your soul to obey Allah. Give that respect. Give your nafs, your soul, its right. Take care and respect your soul. Train it. Create an environment so that it enjoys worshiping Allah. Don't arrange your house in a way where you have no reminders of faith and you have, a TV in the most prominent place that's always tempting you to waste your time. That's unfair to your soul because you want to be a believer, but you're making it hard for yourself. So you have a TV, you want to watch the news, you want to unwind and relax. Maybe some people have an interest in news or sports, but make sure that you also have a reminder of your faith in the way that you decorate your house, in the way that you create your environment, in the friends that you associate with. Make it easy for your soul. Give that respect to your soul. Then the Imam mentions the faculties of your soul. So first Allah, then respect your soul. Give your soul what you owe it so it can thrive, it can flourish. And then your soul acts in this world through your body. So you have to give the rights of your body, your limbs. And there are faculties by which the soul learns things, meaning your eyes by which the soul sees, your ears by which the soul hears. And then there are faculties by which the soul acts in the world. Your hands, it does things. Your soul is the one that makes the decision, your nafs. But then your hands carry out that action. Your feet carry you to the destination that your soul wants to go to. So then the Imam mentions those faculties of the soul. And now I'm not going to go through the details because, as I said, we know what is the obligation of our tongue, not to say what is unworthy. We know what is the obligation of our ears, not to listen to things that are unworthy. But I want to go through the very beautiful order that the Imam teaches us and the comprehensiveness of the lessons the Imam gives us. If you would like to look at the details of the actual teachings that the Imam mentions, and I would encourage everyone to do so, then you can find Risalatul Huquq translated into many different languages. There are two versions. One is a version which is found in the book Tuhaful Uqul that has been translated into English, and it's also translated into Urdu and other languages. And then there is another version which is a little bit shorter, but it is more authentic and more of a scholarly narration that is found in a narration by a Sheikh as-Saduq. So either one of those narrations, they're very similar, but the shorter one is the better one to look at. So the Imam mentions the faculties of the soul, haqqul lisan, your tongue. Honor your tongue, the Imam says, by not speaking in a dirty, a vulgar, a crude manner. Wa haqqus sama', the right of your ears. What should you listen to? Avoid anything that is haram. Wa haqqul basar, there is a right of your eyes. Don't put your eyes in a position where they are looking at something that is haram. That is an injustice to your eyes. Allah gave me these eyes so that I can see the beauty of God's creation, so that I can read, I can learn, I can see what is in front of me and avoid danger. It's a gift. Many people have weak eyesight, or they are not able to see. They were born blind, or they became blind later in life. That is a test. And if I have my eyesight, that is also a test. Let us not misuse that blessing of Allah. وَحَقُّ يَدَيْكَ. Then the Imam mentions your hands. وَحَقُّ رِجْلَيْكَ. The right of your feet. وَحَقُّ بَطْنِكَ. Your stomach. That you should not make your stomach a receptacle for haram food. Don't eat that which is unhealthy for your body or unhealthy for your soul. وَحَقُّ فَرْجِكَ. The right of your private parts, to be modest, to be chaste. These are now the limbs. After that, the Imam moves in the third stage. First Allah, then our nafs and the faculties of our nafs. The third stage is what should we do with those faculties and those gifts that Allah has given us. The most important thing that we do is our worship and our obligations. So these are also huququllah. Remember we said haqqullah al-akbar was at the beginning of this hadith. These are also huququllah, the rights of Allah, acts of worship. Haqqus salat. Salat is a gift. Allah chose the best times of day. Allah chose the best actions and the best words and the best surah of Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha, for us to recite in our salat. This package that we have of salat, it is a cleansing of our body when we do wudu or ghusl. It is a cleansing of our spirit when we recite those beautiful prayers and dhikr that we have been taught. It is a workout for our body, a movement of our body, an orientation of our body towards Allah. It is an anchor for our day. So we always remember dhikr of Allah morning, during the daytime, and at night, from when we wake up to when we go to sleep. Salat is a gift, and we owe it to salat. This is why the Quran says, aqimus salat. Don't just pray, establish prayer. If we are Muslims, we should be concerned about building masajid and attending masajid, because a masjid is a place. In fact, one of the words that is used for masjid in the Quran is salat or salawat, the place of prayer. I should honor salat. There is a right for my salat. وَحَقُّ الْحَجِّ. The Imam says that Hajj has a right on our shoulders. In the du'as of the month of Ramadan, one of the most frequent du'as we have is وَارْزُقْنِي حَجَّ بَيْتِكَ الْحَرَامِ فِي عَامِي هَذَا وَفِي كُلِّ عَامٍ. Oh Allah, grant me to do Hajj of your house in this year and every year. Sometimes people say, well, what if I'm not intending to go for Hajj this year, or I'm not able to go for Hajj this year? I don't have the money, I don't have the health. This year we don't even know if Hajj will be possible because of the health concerns. The wish to do Hajj is different from the intent to do Hajj. Those du'as are expressing that we want Allah to always keep the beauty of Hajj, the importance of Hajj, the desire for Hajj in our hearts. If we are not healthy, may Allah grant us the health. If we do not have the wealth, may Allah grant us the wealth. If we have done our wajib Hajj and now we have other obligations, may Allah clear our plate so that we can think about going for Hajj again. So that desire and that priority of Hajj should always be there. Even if you're not going for Hajj this year, you know that you're not going to be able to go and you don't have that intention, you still make that dua and keep that dua as a sincere prayer. That, oh Allah, grant me the desire for Hajj, grant me the ability to do Hajj. This year and every year, Hajj should be a goal, something that I think about. And then the way that I honor that priority, it might be that I ask people who are going for Hajj, can I help you? Do you have something in your house that you need me to help you with? To look up and check up, make sure that your house is good, water your plants, help them on their journey, help them when they come back, invite them and congratulate them on their performance of Hajj. Hajj should be something important in our lives. وَحَقُّ الصَّوْمِ, there is a right for fasting. The right of fasting is that we consider this to be a gift that Allah has given us, a protective shield from punishment, Imam Zainul Abidin says. So all of these are actions. Not only are they haqqullah, but they are gifts that Allah has given us. And when Allah has given you a gift, you should honor that gift. Don't just throw it in your closet and forget about it. Salat, Hajj, Saum, these are gifts that have a right, that we should honor them, and we should preserve those practices for our community, so that our community and our coming generation of Muslims, they know what is Hajj, they know what is fasting, they know what is Salat, and they have a place to perform Salat. وَحَقُّ الصَّدَقَةِ, the Imam then mentioned sadaqah. In the Quran, sadaqah or sadaqat, it refers to both wajib and recommended forms of giving. There is a right of sadaqah, which is that we should consider our sadaqah to be our savings. What you spend in the way of Allah, that is your saving. We mentioned the hadith of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was known for his generosity, and one of the sayings of Imam Hassan alayhi salam is that it is stingy for a person to think that if you spend it in the way of Allah, that is talaf, meaning that's spent, that's wasted. And what you save, that is sharaf, that is honor. No, what you spend in the way of Allah, that is your sharaf and your honor. And what you keep, that is something that might be wasted, that might be talaf, because who knows if you're ever going to be able to use it for something worthy, or maybe it'll get stolen, maybe it'll get lost, God forbidden, maybe it'll go to inheritance and your heirs will not use it properly. What is given in the way of Allah is sharaf, and what is not given in the way of Allah, that is talaf, especially if there is a proper usage for it in the path of Allah. And then the Imam mentions the sacrifice. The fourth stage is interpersonal relationships. Interpersonal relationships are your government. Even if it's an oppressive government, we still have a responsibility to act with wisdom and with responsibility. We cannot just say that because the government is oppressive, we have no responsibility, it doesn't bother us, whatever happens is not on our shoulders. The Imam teaches us to act with responsibility. Your teachers. Then the Imam mentions, if you have a responsibility to a government, if you are in a position of authority, you have a responsibility to those who are below you. You have a responsibility to those who are learning from you, who are your students. The responsibility of your spouse, your mother, your father. First the mother is mentioned and then the father. Your children, your brother or your siblings. Those who have done a favor to you, those to whom you have done a favor. Each of these, the Imam explains what is the right that you owe to them, but because we are looking just at the list of rights the Imam mentions, I'm not mentioning all of the details. But please do look at Risalat al-Huquq afterwards to get the wisdom of the Imam in greater detail. Haqqul mu'adhin, a person who recites adhan. Reciting adhan is a great honor. Sometimes we think of it as, just let a child recite the adhan, whether they know how to do it or not. It's good for our children to recite the adhan, but we should train them to recite it well, to recite it beautifully, and then we should encourage them to perform the adhan. The recitation of the adhan is a very important role because it's a reminder of our prayer, which is the greatest act in Islam. So the Imam singles out the right of a mu'adhin, somebody who recites the adhan. Haqqu imamik fi salatik, the person who is leading you in prayer. The person who sits with you when you sit down, your companion when you are sitting, your neighbor, your companion, for example, when you are traveling, your business partner, Your property has a right. Somebody to whom you owe money, your gharim. Khalit, somebody who you interact with, an acquaintance, at work, you interact with people. How should you interact with them? Somebody who is an adversary. If somebody sues you in court, you still owe them to be just. Your adversary whom you are suing or you are making a claim against. If somebody has wronged you, then you can't just get revenge. You have a responsibility to that person. Somebody who is seeking your advice, and somebody whom you are giving advice to. Those who are sincere to you, those who are elderly, those who are young, those who may ask you for your help, those whom you ask for their help. Sometimes I ask somebody for help and they don't help me. So what do I owe them? Those who I like and those who I dislike, those who are members of your religion, those who are members of other religions. That, in summary, is Risalat al-Huquq, the rights that Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam mentions, a comprehensive and a beautiful list. May Allah grant us the ability to fulfill the huquq that we owe to Allah and that we owe in all of our other roles in our life, and may we learn from the example and the lessons taught to us by our Imams. That concludes this portion of our program. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yesterday, we were not able to mention our sponsors due to technical difficulties. The program in honor of Imam Hassan's birth was sponsored by Dr. Sadiq Beg and Dr. and Brother Iqbal and their families. For their marhumin, today's program is sponsored by Brother Muhsin and Abida Hussein. For their families and marhumin, let us recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. And now, inshallah, Brother Qambar will recite Dua al-Iftitah for us. Brother Qambar, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النقال والنكمة وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي وعجب يا رحيم دعوتي وعقل يا غفور أسرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها وحموم قد كشفتها وأسرة قد أكلتها ورحمة قد نشرتها وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها على جميع نعمه كلها الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلى جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير ما حاجة بي إليه عزيمة وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي وصفحك عن ظلمي وسترك على كبيه عملي وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطائي وعمدي. أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وأريتني من قدرتك وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا لا خائفا ولا وجلا مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد اللئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول عناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى. تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعازده. قهر بعزته العزة وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبغل بقدرته ما يشاء الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصي ويعزم النعمة علي فلا أجازي فكم من موهبة حنيعة قد أعطاني وعزيمة مخوفة قد قفاني وبهجة مؤنكة قد أراني فأثني عليه حامدا وأشكره مسبحا الحمد لله الذي لا يحتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد صائله ولا يخيب عامله الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويزع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الحاربين نقال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موزع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفتك واحلل الكرامة عليك من خلقك اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ومسيح رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبع العظيم وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين وصل على سبتي الرحمة وإمام الهدى الحسن والحسين سيد شباب أهل الجنة وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك. استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله. مكن له دينه الذي ارتزيته له. أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. عزه واعزز به وانصره وانتصر به وانصره نصرا عزيزا وافتح له فتحا يسيرا واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أزهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا وما كسرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا واشعب به صدعنا وارتق به فتقنا وكسر به كلتنا وعزز به ذلتنا وأغني به عائلنا واقض به عن مغرمنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به خلتنا ويسر به عسرنا وبيز به وجوهنا وفك به عسرنا وأنجح به طلبتنا وأنجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا واعتنا به سؤلنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا واعتنا به فوق ركبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشفع به صدورنا وأزحب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إلى الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله وإنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله وبزر تكشفه ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Muhammad,
Santum,
mashallah.
Jazakumullah. Santum. That was Dua al-Iftitah, the dua which is recommended for us to recite every day in the Ramadan. Thank you to Brother Qambar for the recitation. And now Brother Ahmed Nabavi will recite for us another dua that is recommended for us to recite in the month of Ramadan. Ramadan is a time when we connect to our fellow communities, community members, our fellow believers. We think of all of those who are suffering any form of hardship, whether it be financial or personal, or any form of oppression. And this is a time when in our own community and throughout the world, many innocent people are suffering all forms of hardship. So let us remember all of those fellow believers and fellow human beings in our prayers. Ask Allah to come to their assistance. And as we make that dua, let us also think in our own mind to do what we can in order to be able to help them and to alleviate the suffering that they have. Brother Ahmed, please continue.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور اللهم أغني كل فقير اللهم أشبع كل جائع اللهم اكس كل عريان اللهم اغز دين كل مدين اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب اللهم رد كل غريب اللهم فك كل أسير اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين اللهم اشف كل مريض اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك اللهم اغز عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Jazakumullah, ahsantum, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate the suffering of all of those who are in hardship and in difficulty, and may we do our part through our words and through our actions to help those who are less fortunate in this month of Ramadan and throughout our lives. Allahumma ameen. We have about 20 minutes until the time of Adhan. During this time, we will recite some of the daily prayers that are recommended in the month of Ramadan. There are a number of things that we pray for in these daily prayers, and briefly, I will give a translation or an explanation for the important concepts that are mentioned in these du'as that are taught from Ahlul Bayt. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma arzuqni hajja baytika al-haram fi aami hadha wa fi kulli aam ma abqaytani fi yusrin minka wa afiyah وسعة رزق ولا تخلني من تلك المواقف الكريمة والمشاهد الشريفة وزيارة قبر نبيك صلواتك عليه وآله في جميع حوائج الدنيا والآخرة فكن لي اللهم إني أسألك فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في ليلة القدر من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم واجعل لي فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري وتوسع علي في رزقي وتؤدي عني أمانتي وديني آمين يا رب العالمين. This is a dua in particular for Allah to grant us Hajj. And this year we find that our local masajid, the shrines of our imams, the house of Allah in Mecca, and the masjid of our Prophet in Medina, all of them are unable to have the worshippers present that are there every year. Imagine in this month of Ramadan, we celebrated the birth of Imam Hassan, but there was no one who was able to visit Medina. And although there is no shrine in Jannatul Baqi', but still so many believers would come to the gates of Baqi' and pay their respects and do ziyarah of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba and those imams who are buried in Baqi', and they would visit the Prophet and send their salams on the Prophet and Lady Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. That is not possible this year. Similarly, for Hajj, for Umrah, the nights of Shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen are coming up, and yet it is not possible for people to go in the numbers that they would like to pay their respects in the shrine of Imam Ali. So this is a very important dua in particular for this year. These places of worship, whether it be my local masjid or whether it be the shrine of one of the ma'asumeen or whether it be Masjidun Nabi or the Kaaba, these are the symbols of our faith. And even when we are not there physically, when we do ziyarah from afar, our hearts are present there. Our hearts are longing to go and be able to do ziyarah from up close. May Allah grant us the tawfiq of Hajj and Umrah and ziyarah, protect those shrines, and allow them once again to open and to welcome visitors who would like to come. The next dua is a dua which is narrated from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, which he used to recite in this month of Ramadan. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma inni bika wa minka atlubu hajati. ومن طلب حاجة إلى الناس فإني لا أطلب حاجتي إلا منك وحدك لا شريك لك وأسألك بفضلك ورضوانك أن تصلي على محمد وأهل بيته وأن تجعل لي في عامي هذا إلى بيتك الحرام سبيلا حجة مبرورة متقبلة زاكية خالصة لك تقر بها عيني وترفع بها درجتي وترزقني أن أغض بصري وأن أحفظ فرجي وأن أكف بها عن جميع محارمك حتى لا يكون شيء آثر عندي من طاعتك وخشيتك والعمل بما أحببت والترك لما كرهت ونهيت عنه واجعل ذلك في يسر ويسار وعافية وما أنعمت به علي وأسألك أن تجعل وفاتي قتلا في سبيلك تحت راية نبيك مع أوليائك وأسألك أن تقتل بي أعداءك وأعداء رسولك وأسألك أن تكرمني بهوان من شئت من خلقك ولا تهني بكرامة أحد من أوليائك اللهم اجعل لي مع الرسول سبيلا حسبي الله ما شاء الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد In this dua, in addition to praying for the opportunity to do Hajj, the Imam says that, oh Allah, when I go for Hajj, then make it Hijjah Mabrura, one that is accepted, Mutaqabbala, one that is acceptable to Allah, Zakiyah, that is pure. Not that I go to Hajj just for sightseeing or for the experience, but to serve Allah, khalisatan lak, only for the sake of Allah. And then the Imam says, oh Allah, I ask your assistance and your help, an aghudda basari, for me to control my eyes from looking at what is haram, wa an ahfadha farji, and let me protect my modesty and my chastity so I don't do anything that is sinful, wa an akuffa biha an jami'i maharimik, and that I will avoid anything haram, حتى لا يكون شيء آثر عندي. Oh Allah, make my heart such that I want nothing more than I want to obey you. Make my heart desire good deeds so that it is easier for me to carry them out. And nothing is more desirable to me than to at-tark lima karihta wa nahayta anh, for me to avoid those things that you have prohibited. These are some of the du'as that we have narrated from Ahlul Bayt. And then there are other du'as which are recommended in particular in the evening and in the night. We will recite a few of these du'as as we approach the time for Adhan. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فأدخلنا وفي عليين فارفعنا وبكأس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا ومن الولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فأخدمنا ومن ثمار الجنة ولحوم الطير فأطعمنا ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا وليلة القدر وحج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا ومن الزقوم والضريع فلا تطعمنا ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. This is a dua where we ask Allah for His reward in paradise and protection from His punishment in hellfire. And in particular, we ask Allah to give us that pure sustenance that is destined for the believers in paradise, and to protect us from that unpleasant and that painful food and drink that will be given to the evildoers and the sinful in hell. We abstain from food and drink. We put our bodies through a test in the month of Ramadan to show Allah that we serve and we obey His command. And we ask Allah to protect us from punishment in the hereafter and to reward us according to His mercy in paradise. The next dua is narrated from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عن سيئاتهم وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية وتوسع في رزقي وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. This is similar to some of the other du'as that we have seen before. In it, we ask Allah for the opportunity to do Hajj and to grant us an accepted Hajj and a worthy Hajj, forgiveness of our sins. And then we ask Allah to do certain things for us. One is, An tutila umri. Oh Allah, grant us a long life. The longer our life, the more time and opportunity we have to do good deeds. And so we ask Allah to grant us a long life, fi khairin wa afiyah. Khair means in goodness. A long life is not valuable for its own sake. Many of our Imams did not have a long life. Lady Fatima, according to some narrations, only lived 18 years. Some of the martyrs of Karbala, as we all know, were very young when they were martyred. But their life had more khair than many people who lived a very long life. So we ask Allah for a long life. It's good to pray for a long life so that we have the time and opportunity to do good deeds, to be of benefit to others. But we ask Allah for a long life, not for its own sake, fi khairin, in goodness, wa afiyah, and oh Allah, grant us health, grant us our material needs, so that we have the ability to do good. Then we ask Allah, wa tuwassi'a fi rizqi, oh Allah, grant me abundant rizq. But we ask Allah for rizq so that we can use that rizq to help others to do good and not just to serve our own whims. And then Imam Sadiq says that in the nights of Qadr, O Allah, during this month of Ramadan, the dua for Laylatul Qadr is not only on Laylatul Qadr. The dua for Laylatul Qadr is throughout the month. O Allah, when the nights of Qadr come, then on that night, I ask you, O Allah, taj'alani mimman tantasiru bihi lidinik. Make me one of those people who you count on to help your religion. When we need to defend Islam, when we need to establish the teachings of Islam, let me be a volunteer, not just on the battlefield, but anywhere. Islam needs people to devote their life to it as a volunteer, as a teacher, as a helper of Islamic projects, as a student to learn about Islam. Oh Allah, make me taj'alani mimman tantasiru bihi lidinik. Make me somebody that you use in order to serve Islam. This is not just the job of ulama. It's not just the job of mujahideen. It's the job of each and every individual Muslim. وَلَا تَسْتَبْدِلْ بِي غَيْرِي. And oh Allah, I might be looking forward to retirement from my job. If I'm a student, I might be looking forward to my graduation. But oh Allah, when it comes to serving your path, when it comes to volunteering and working in your path, my dua is, La tastabdil bi ghayri. Oh Allah, don't put anyone else in my place. Don't switch me out to make use of somebody else. Of course, this doesn't mean that we never give up our position. It means that we always look for ways to serve. One of the ways that we serve is that we train people who are younger than us in order to serve as directors, as trustees, as officials within our Islamic organizations, so that there is a continuity and a passing on of that responsibility. But then when we have done that, when we have trained people, we also should look for somewhere that we can continue to volunteer so long as we are alive. We don't want to retire from the path of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once again, this last portion of the dua of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, وَأَن تَجْعَلَ فِي مَا تَقْضِي وَتُقَدِّرْ أَن تُطِيلَ عُمُرِي فِي خَيْرٍ وَعَافِيَةٍ وَتُوَسِّعَ فِي رِزْقِي وَتَجْعَلَنِي مِمَّنْ تَنْتَصِرُ بِهِ لِدِينِكَ وَلَا تَسْتَبْدِلْ بِي غَيْرِي. O Allah, use me for your purposes so long as I am alive. And then finally there is a dua, أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم. O Allah, I seek refuge from the honor of your message and your attributes. أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان, that the month of Ramadan might pass. أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه, or that this night might pass and tomorrow's morning may break, the dawn may come. وَلَكَ قِبَلِ تَبِعَةٌ أَوْ ذَنْبٌ تُعَذِّبُنِي عَلَيْهِ, while there is still a sin or a wrongdoing that you have not forgiven me for. O Allah, forgive me my sins and my wrongdoings before the end of the month of Ramadan. O Allah, forgive me my sins even before the end of this night that is about to begin. It is now time for us to recite the Adhan of Salatul Maghrib and to break our fast. May Allah accept the fast from all of us and all mu'mineen and mu'minat. And I will now request Brother Khalid Abbas to recite Adhan of Maghrib.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم بسم الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله ربي الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله ربي أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أشهد أن عليا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام أشهد أن عليا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم اجعل قلبي بارا وشيكارا ولسارا ورزقي دارا وأولادي برارا واجعلني عند قبر نبيك مستقرا وقرارا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. جزاكم Allah, taqabbal Allah a'malakum. May Allah accept the worship and fasting of all members of our community.